What is going on, guys? It is your boy BF here, and today we're going to be talking about my thoughts on the BF 2042 beta that came out today about 8 a.m. for UK guys GMT. And yeah, I'm literally going to be talking about my initial impressions of the game and all the sort of things that I noted. I basically got a pad and paper. What am I talking about? A pad and paper, blah blah blah, pad and pencil, and wrote down all the things that I noticed as I was playing. So that is literally what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go through in sections. Just going to do a little intro first, and then talk about bots, vehicles, and then movement, then gunplay, then specialists, then any other stuff that I couldn't really categorize. So yeah, let's get right into it, boys. Obviously, unsurprisingly, BF 2042 is set in the year 2042. So obviously, you've got sort of a postmodern shooter going on. Only the one map to play with. Obviously, 2 probably maps would have been ideal, I think. 3 I think is just asking way too much, but I think ideally bouncing back between 2 maps would be able to keep it a bit more refreshing, because I feel bored of the map already after just a day basically, which is not ideal, mainly because I sort of tend to stay in the same sort of B, D, D1, D2 area on the map really, because that seems to be where the majority of the fighting is. If you're not in any of those areas, you're probably stuck on C flag, in like an endless battle between the hills and the sort of oil tankers. And if you're not there, you're probably sniping in the random bush on a hill, or just generally driving about on a vehicle, and there's not much else going on apart from those sort of areas. So yeah, that kind of ties into some of the things. I'll come back to that. Obviously, we've had our first sighting of rocket launchers and tornadoes. Pretty funny, if you ask me, to see every so often the rocket sort of blow up before it even launches, and then to go in the tornado and get flung out somewhere. It's pretty entertaining. Although obviously you don't want those to be too frequent. I think there's a 10% chance right now, which seems about right for the beta to sort of show it off, but I don't think that would be a sustainable thing going forward. I'm not a big conquest guy, and I think that would probably push me even more towards any modes which don't have, natural disasters happening during the game on the reg. Obviously, crashes, bugs, connection issues, those kind of things need to be addressed by DICE, but I'm not going to focus too much on those because I think those are kind of obvious, and I think different people have had their different sort of issues with the game. Some people can't log on, some people can't connect, some people have low frame rate, different issues and stuff. There's no point talking about all those too much. One of the main things that I noticed straight away, I guess, was the lighting and the visibility is a lot better than BF5. Obviously, I'm going to be comparing most of the stuff to BF5, and I think there's a massive improvement in terms of the visibility and the lighting. Being able to see enemies, even in sort of dark, dimly lit areas, you can still sort of see their outlines, and their movement is quite distinctive and stuff. So, big improvement on that in terms of, especially at launch, because it can only really get better from here, I would imagine. But no, moving on to a first section, bots and vehicles. I am sick of seeing bots and recognizing them and killing the same people called like private Joe Mama, like, come on, like there's just too many of them. There's like, you get like a 3-piece on a flag, and that is so like massively unsatisfying to get a 3-piece and cap a flag and be like, yeah, well, I killed 3 bots just standing there in the middle of the flag, barely shooting back. Like, it's just stupid. Honestly, I would just rather just not have them in the game. I would literally rather an empty server with a working team balancer than have bots in the game to fill out the 128 players. If you haven't got those sort of player counts, then reduce it. It's just that simple. Anyway, to me anyway. And obviously, well, not obviously, but you might find out that bots can drive vehicles, which is baffling to see a random AI sort of driving around a Jeep by themselves for no particular reason, and a heli and stuff is genuinely quite baffling. Was not expecting that. But in terms of vehicles, I guess the main thing that everyone sort of noticed is a good heli pilot or a good tanker will dominate the kills in a round if they're able to just sort of do their thing. So yeah, good luck to people fighting against a heli when you've got really a limited sort of stuff against it. And if you do carry that kind of stuff, those gadgets and things, obviously you won't have much for Infi gunplay as well. So that's a little bit of an issue. I think it's slightly too heavily flavoured in terms of the manoeuvrability of helis and stuff. They're very powerful, but maybe I'm just going to have to get used to it, and that's just how it's going to be. Moving on to movement, I think this is probably the most improved aspect of the game that I noticed so far. Obviously preliminary stuff, but most of it is fluid. Parachuting, slide jumping, all that kind of stuff is generally quite smooth and fluid. Except for when you slide in ADS quickly, the camera sort of snaps FOV backwards and then forwards, and it's a bit strange. It's difficult to explain. You might see it in some of the gameplay that's going to be behind this audio track, but yeah, it's a bit strange, to be honest with you. Sometimes when you slide in ADS quickly, which should be a bit smoother, but in that area. But the rest of the movement is quite good, I think. Again, much better than the BF5 slide, which is just a bit strange, honestly. And it's definitely unique to that game. I've never really played any other game like BF5, and the movement in that game is the same kind of thing. It's just very unique and different. And this feels a bit more almost Warzone-y. I've had a few people say it's kind of like hardline. It reminds me visually of BF4, even though I've never played it. But from what I've seen, it looks very much like BF4 in like a modern console. So yeah, and I think in terms of movement, this kind of goes into the movement. Like the meta is to spawn high up at the moment. Like, so B flag, for example, spawning on that and parachuting down to like D1 and D2. That seems to be the meta, or spawning in a helicopter and parachuting instantly down from that as quickly as you can, and cutting the chute and then re-parachuting and cutting it again and re-parachuting it. Seems to be the meta basically right now, because it's just so difficult to get around on foot without getting beamed by something else. So you just kind of have to parachute down from a high position and move around the map that way, really. And I do have to give praise to the fact that they've reduced the fall damage. I think that's obviously a very good addition for a modern sort of setting. It makes a lot of sense to me. I'm glad it's not cutthroat. If you drop 2 meters, you're going to lose some health and take a bit of damage. Like, that's not realistic, and it's not fitting for a modern setting where you'd imagine all the soldiers are going to be sort of super soldiers and stuff. So yeah, in terms of the last thing for movement is lifts and zip lines. I think both are pretty cool, but I think both are kind of pretty buggy. Some of the lift stuff had a bit of a funny clip with Rubber and Slap, where we're basically all of us are like going through the floor as we go up the lift, and then we get up to the lift and the doors are dodgy, the button's dodgy, and you can obviously just camp the lift door, and that's AIDS, obviously. And the zip lines kind of same thing. They're pretty cool. I mean, they're kind of necessary to get a B flag, for example. But yeah, just a bit of fine tuning wouldn't go amiss for that, for sure. Moving on to gunplay. In terms of general gunplay stuff, BF5, I would usually aim by centering and then use strafing with my left stick. That's basically how I would laser beam people with the BFG. BF 2042, there's a lot more right stick aiming, although there is obviously a decent amount of aim assist. It's difficult to say whether it's snap on or whether it's slow down or a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both, but it's definitely more right stick aiming than left stick, because your strafe doesn't really go that quickly when you're ADSing. It really does slow you down. There's, I'm not sure if they're going to introduce some sort of stock attachment where that you could increase your strafing speed while ADS, but at the moment you really don't have a quick one, even with the SMG. So it's a lot more right stick aiming than left stick aiming, I've noticed. There's way too little ammo, way too little ammunition. I don't know why games do this, where they just absolutely shaft you with 2 mags, as if a soldier's going to go into a war zone with 2 mags. It's just stupid. It's just ruins your flow. You're finally starting to get into consecutive gunfights and enjoying yourself, and then you're dead because you ran out of ammo, because you have to run an ammo pack or have to run around in a squad with some sort of support player, and it's not even an option. It's like you have to. Like, if you're a good player and you can survive multiple gunfights in a row, you will run out of ammo every time, unless you have an ammo thing with you. And if you don't have an ammo thing with you, you don't have a health thing, and you'll probably die because you don't have any health. It's just like, there's obviously a happy medium to be found where they can give you a bit more ammo. Like, come on. Like, you guys, you can figure that out for yourself. Please, just a little bit more on spawn, obviously. One massive thing which I noticed again, iron sights are viable in this game, which is hilarious, because obviously the last time he said that about Battlefield game was BF1, I guess, with like the Hell Regal, auto-loading extended. I guess you could say like ribbon rolls and like incursions or something, but you know what I mean. It's actually viable in this game, because it wasn't at all in BF5, so that's a nice thing too. I was running around iron sights just for the fun of it, and I think I probably would use reflex most of the time. But the fact you can use iron sights if you want to is really nice. And there's no leaning. So rip all the Leany boys. I think I turned into quite a leany boy by the end of the game, but that's more out of a necessity to compete rather than playing in a sexy, non-leaning way. But now there's no choice at all. You can't lean at all, which is a fantastic improvement. I'm really happy about that. And jump shooting and drop shotting are both viable. And I think the prone to standing animation you get is actually really fast. Like you could drop shot and probably get back up again, and I'm sure someone like Frantic or something is going to start finding a way to abuse that in some sort of way. But it's a very fast animation. I think both are actually viable. So I think Ash will be happy with the jump shotting, and I think quite a few players will enjoy the drop shotting as well, especially the close range players. It's weird though, because obviously you've got that attachment system with holding down the L1, and then you go through the sight and the barrel and the grip, and then like the stock place. But it's well, okay. First of all, you can only do that in the game. You can't do that in the menus, which is a strange choice. And then the attachments don't really tell you what they are. So like, I'll give you an example, like Cobra grip as opposed to like the regular grip. Like, what does that actually do? I think they have some sort of dodgy stats sort of bar thing in the bottom, but that kind of reminds me of like the Black Ops 3 thing, where the attachments would change the stats of the gun, but it doesn't mean anything. So I don't really know if I can trust that as like actually useful. So yeah, it's a bit strange. I think they need to explain that slightly better and give you an option to do that in some sort of menu, sort of before you get into the lobby. You can actually set yourself up, or the classes and stuff. Because there's a lot of times where I was forced to spawn in as something I didn't want to spawn in, and it's like, why am I being forced to play a scout or something? I don't understand. Anyway, gunplay wise, this kind of falls into it. I think the introduction of crossplay, obviously, the gunplay is different in that sense, in terms of you do notice playing against PC players. I think on average they're probably a better quality player than on console. That's a vast generalization, but I think that's probably more accurate than not. And that kind of leads me into thinking, like, is there a team balancer in this game? Are the teams balanced in any way? I'm not really sure. I guess that's to be confirmed, really. But it kind of got me thinking, just because of crossplay and the increased need to not have a team full of PC players versus console players, and to mix them up respectively, if that makes sense. And there's no bloody frag grenade indicator, which is just annoying. So yeah, thanks for that, DICE. It's not like it's game breaking or anything. Especially when the bots like to use them more than the actual players do. So I can't remember how many. I don't think I've ever played. I don't think I've died to a single player throwing a grenade, but I have died to bots throwing grenades and trading me out about 3 times. So that's fun. Moving on to specialists. Obviously, the sort of class system they have going on. At the moment, there's only 4, and I'm not sure if that's going to change or stay the same. I have no clue. I thought they might go sort of down like the Rainbow Six route, where they've got like operators, and it's kind of like a lot different variation and stuff. I think that's where they're going. But at the moment, because obviously you can choose everything so specifically, you can start with some sort of base character and then sort of tune it to some degree. To a large degree, there's actually kind of little variation in a lot of the meta players, I guess. So the best players in the lobby are almost always using either the AK or that P90 sort of vector-looking SMG. I can't remember what it's called. It might be the K90, something 90, and it's an extremely strong melter machine. So a lot of the players are using that. They're using a grapple. They're using either ammo or health, and probably running around in a squad in some sort of way. And there's not much variation apart from that, really. There's no nade shooting, so that's always good. But it's not, because it is so customizable. The meta becomes very, very fixed, and everyone becomes a bit of a super soldier, except for the ammo and health thing, really. So I'm not sure what I think about that, really. If everyone's running around with the grapple hook and medkit, then it might get a bit boring real quick. And obviously you have the issue then of having, like a sniper or a support MMG player camping with unlimited ammo, which I know was the case in BF5, which is still, it was and never got resolved, and it was an issue from launch. You have now snipers potentially having health kits and all sorts of stuff. It's like, I'm not sure if I like that or not. It's something to consider and talk about, I guess, in the comments. What you guys think about the specialist system. So obviously they changed so when you get killed, they remapped the R2 button from skip, the revive on BF5, to call for help, and made X, the skip thing. And although the down skip button is very quick, like I appreciate the fact that you can hold X pretty much as soon as you die and just skip all the bullshit. That's great. I appreciate that quickness and stuff. And I assumed they remapped it to make people ask for revives more, right? To incentivize more medics to do stuff. But then they didn't add any medic indicators or any distance indicators. So you can't see around you who's going to revive you or who can revive you or if you should hold on to your revive or not. And when it's a 30-second hold on, you don't want to waste 30 seconds every time you die waiting for people that aren't going to come because you don't even know if they're there or not. It's just, that's just classic DICE. They think of something, oh, this would be nice. Let's bamboozle everyone by switching the controls around to make people wait for revives more, and then not give them any way to figure out if they are going to get revived or not because we haven't given them an indicator for any medics. So that's just classic DICE, really. That's just stupid. And then moving on to the last section, other stuff that I didn't really categorize. I think it's funny because the map's so big that sometimes you actually spawn incorrectly and have to redeploy just to get back to the spawn screen so you can spawn in the right place. Or you call in a vehicle, which, to be fair, is actually quite a useful thing. It's pretty quick and it's usually available and it's actually pretty good. I actually quite like that. It's a good idea. It's definitely very casual. It's not. I hope that's not ever going to be a thing in competitive, but from a casual perspective, first impressions, that's actually pretty useful. If they are going to keep, insist on making these maps, horrendously too large and having large empty spaces of nothingness, then yeah, you got to give us a way to get around quickly, and they have. So fair enough. The squad scoreboard, the sort of system where you've got like Dawnbreaker squad, and you've got to sort of accumulatively, the four of you have got to lead the lobby in kills, or you lead your team in kills and revives and stuff, means that you can't actually see anyone outside of your squad how they're doing. And even if you go on the pause menu onto the whole like sort of lobby overview, you can only see everyone's sort of names in alphabetical order on each team and not where they're ranked based on kills or anything or score or anything. And it's just like, what? Like, so you've got a squad scoreboard, which means nothing, because if you're, well, to be honest with you, all that I had was usually leading my squad in kills, and that's great. I don't even know if I'm doing well or not, because my squad's on like 2 kills, 1 kill, 0 kill, and I'm usually, after the first life or so, I'm usually on like 5 or 6 or something, and they're usually on like 1, 2, 0. It's like, cool. Thanks for that. Anyway, how am I actually doing how am I doing against the best player on their team or the best player on my team? You know what I mean? It's almost useless. Like that squad scoreboard is basically useless. Unless you are literally in 4v4 comp where the spectator could see both. Which is another thing I actually forgot to put on there, but I've just thought about now. Wild is going to love the fact that you can now apparently use those drones to basically use as a spectator mode, because they haven't got a spectator mode at launch, but they have got drones in the sky that you could maybe have Wild in the map as a player, spawns in, launches his drone, and as long as he's within range, he could spectate the action maybe, which is hilarious. Anyway, yeah, in general, I just find the spawn screen kind of clunky to use. I might have to get used to it, and I might be just moaning about nothing, but it was a bit clunky and a bit difficult to sort of realise what was going on, even in terms of like hard to see which objectives were being capped and uncapped and all that kind of stuff, because of that the sort of circular unticking animation they have. It's very, very small to even actually see. Oh, we're losing the flag. Like, unless it's very quick. If it's kind of gradual, it's like, are we losing the flag or what? And you kind of have to sort of squint and sort of go, what's happening there? But again, I'm sure I'll get used to it, some of these things. And also the last sort of thing I noticed was the fact you don't have to be anywhere in particular on the flag anymore to sort of influence the speed at which it's capped or uncapped, because obviously on BF5 the closer you are to the actual flagpole, the quicker it would be, and you would have like a red and blue sort of bar in terms of enemies and friendlies on the flag. This time you've got specifically the number of enemies you have on the flag, which is very, very sort of condescending almost. It's like, you guys on BF5 didn't even know what this meant, you're too stupid, so we're gonna have to just give you the number just so you know exactly that you're always looking for one more player on the flag, or there's always this amount of players to get. Like, I don't know, it's very, very noob friendly, almost condescending, to be honest with you. But again, for every negative I bring up, there seems to be like a nice little positive, like the flag spawns that you have on objectives. Say you're losing a flag and you spawn on it, the spawns you get are generally on the flag or very close to the flag, and they're actually like viable to re-challenge the flag. They're not, spawn you out past the other flag that you weren't even trying to spawn on, like the, you know, BF5 kind of spawns. They're actually quite close to the flag, which is quite refreshing and nice. And I guess the only other new thing is the Conquest sector system. I kind of referred to it a few times with B flag, D1, D2. On the only map we have, D1 and D2 is the only sector which has multiple flags. But you kind of see the idea that they're going for, with different sectors being of different importance almost. But the thing is, despite D being the kind of hub of the map, in terms of where enemies usually are and where gunfights, infantry gunfights usually happening, that actually makes the sector less valuable, because it's easier just to cap the derelict flags on the edge of the map, which weigh the same as two very heavily defended sectors in D sector, if that makes sense. So a lot of the teams that win these games, you might notice if you keep playing, the teams that dominate the fringe of the maps rather than the center of the map, actually. Which team has that annoying player who, you know, drives to the edge of the map, caps F flag by themselves, and wins your team an entire sector by themselves without doing any gunfights. So yeah, it's an interesting sector system, but I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of it, because it almost makes the outside flags too valuable now, as opposed to the central ones where you're fighting over them quite heavily. So that's all I've got for you right now. A bit of a long sort of video talking wise, but I'm just going to send it, honestly, raw commentary. This is my first go at it, and that's what you're going to get. Hopefully the gameplay in the background was entertaining enough. It's literally, I've literally going to add, like, you know, my first gameplays. Like, these are going to be dog shit, and you can see the progression almost in my gameplay, I guess. Hopefully over time. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave any comments down below on your thoughts on this kind of stuff, and I'll see everyone in the next video. Sayonara.